Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Paterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right, as I told you all, this is one of my favorite times of the year. My favorite time of the year is summer, but we're heading that way, and today is going to feel summer-like. We are at 49.3 degrees right now, moving up to a high of 79. Sunny. We're moving to a low tonight, a few passing clouds of 43. And then tomorrow, Sunday, 62 is a high, 44 degrees as a low. Cloudy with occasional rain after midnight on Sunday, and it's going to remain rainy on Monday morning. That's likely, but we're going to have a high of 60, low of 54. Occasional light rain Monday night. And then Tuesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 66, low of 44. Clear skies Tuesday night, and rounding out the forecast for Wednesday, we have a few clouds in the afternoon, mainly sunny though, high of 63, low of 43, partly cloudy skies early, giving way to a few showers after midnight on Wednesday. Well, that's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. And as we can say in the Baptist Church, and is not grammatically correct, but nevertheless, I am glad to have a good friend of mine who is standing or sitting on the other side of me on the microphones. And we have been trying to get this interview together since he first told me that he wrote his book. The first thing whenever his wife told me and he told me and I saw that it was coming out, he had done a book signing at the school and everything, I said, I got to have him on the show. And we've been trying to do it, and his schedule is extremely, you think my schedule is busy, his schedule takes it up to the second power. So his schedule goes up to another level. So we just have not been able to coordinate it. And then he's doing an initiative over the next week or so, sometime this week, that he's going to actually be giving away a lot of the copies of the book to the Paterson area. And we said, you know what, this is a perfect time to get him on the air. And we could talk about that initiative as well as the book itself. But he is none other than Vaughn L, McKoy, JD, and MBA, an inner city youth from Paterson, P-Town, quote unquote, New Jersey. Vaughn L. McKoy is the youngest of 6 siblings and an impoverished single mom. Unlike his siblings and friends, he becomes convinced life has more to offer than drugs, gangs, and prison. Throughout grade school and high school, despite the lure of the streets and the shock and responsibility of becoming a teenage dad, he strives for athletic excellence, encouraged by baseball, basketball, and football coaches whose teachings are never solely about the game. After being awarded a football scholarship to Rutgers University, Vaughn meets former alumnus, attorney, and business mogul Arthur Goldberg while lifting weights. Goldberg is featured not only in Nelson Johnson's Boardwalk Empire, but more recently in The War at the Shore, Donald Trump, Steve Wynn, and the epic war to save Atlantic City by Richard D. Bronson. For the next 10 years, Mr. G weekly mentors Vaughn to pursue academic and professional success through teachings of his own. Under the mentorship of Mr. G, Vaughn continues his rise to professional achievement as an assistant United States attorney for the District of New Jersey, and today is an executive and lawyer representing his company as one of the sponsors for the upcoming, or this past, 2014 Super Bowl. I welcome the author of Playing Up, One Man's Rise from Public Housing to Public Service Through Mentorship, none other than my friend Vaughn L. McKoy. Vaughn, welcome to the Reading Circle.
I'm happy to be here, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Man, I tell you, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. And then, so I gave Vaughn the opportunity. I said, look, man, you have the option if you want to. You can call into the show because most of my guests call in. You can call in, or since you're in the area, you can come live into the studio. He said, man, I want to feel the studio experience.
Absolutely. Got to be in the studio,
So, all right, I just read a little bit in the bio, and your story is, let me see how I can put this. For the most part, not everyone in Paterson, but for the most part, Vaughn's story is a Paterson kid's story.
Absolutely.
I work in the school system, and yesterday I had a young man who was a doctor in San Antonio, Texas. We did a Skype session with him. He's been a guest on this show as well, Dr. Antonio Webb. And his story is very similar to this, except he grew up in New Orleans.
Yes.
Very similar. His book is called Overcoming the Odds. This one is Playing Up. My point is these gentlemen have a message for society and for our children, that in spite of, you can still make it.
Absolutely.
And that's what Vaughn is trying to say here. But let's talk a little bit about it, because now with Antonio, his story is out of New Orleans, and I do know a little bit about New Orleans, but I definitely know about Paterson.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about, how did you now, break away from the friends and everybody else who seems to do whatever it is they do that winds up getting themselves in trouble, and yet you were able to kind of
separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you read a little bit of it in the intro. And, number one, sports. That was kind of my outlet. Now, everybody out there may not be athletic, so it may be science, it may be math, it may be chess, it may be karate, it may be taekwondo. Everybody has a different talent, gift, or skill. And I learned very early on that, I love to play sports. And so thanks to a lot of my coaches who, like I said before, the teachings were not solely about the game. They were about life. And I knew that I wanted to play sports. And in order to play sports, I had to at least, be average in school, even though I really wanted to be more than average. But I had to keep up my grades. And so I think the passion for sports and athletics and the coaches who kind of encouraged me along the way. And then, just seeing some of the examples of folks who had the ability but never fulfilled their potential, and understanding why they didn't do it and not wanting to go that way. And so it was a combination of all those things. And you know what, Mark, I wish I could tell you that I was that great, but sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time and making the right decisions at the right time, because I can remember making poor decisions and poor choices, but I was able to recover from them. And some people are not, or they extend that grace too long, and then they get jammed up in a situation where that blemish or that mark or that mistake, kind of becomes like the scarlet letter, and it kind of follows them wherever they go. So I'm not here sitting in this chair today because I'm so great. I had a lot of great people who helped me along the way, and that's why the title of the book is Playing Up, One Man's Rise from Public Housing to Public Service Through Mentorship. And I construe that term mentorship very broadly to include, obviously, my mother, who was a single mom. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, the first to go to college, the first to go to graduate school, kind of the first to do a lot of things in my family. So even though I'm the youngest, I kind of carry the burden of the oldest. But starting with her and watching her work ethic and what she did and how she did it, to kind of raise all of us. And then all of my coaches and obviously all of my teachers here in the Paterson Public School District, who I still keep in contact with to this day, because they did do the best they could to kind of teach me and put me on the path of success and excellence.
Absolutely. For those in the listening audience, please, you got to get on your social media sites. You know the drill. And get on all of them. I just went on Hootsuite that sends it out to all of my sites, that Vaughn is on the air with me, that this is a story that needs to be heard. I'm going to share some very brief information, 30 seconds worth of information, and Vaughn will be right back as we continue to talk about his journey, because it is an inspiration. Because one, we're constantly hearing about the kids, how bad they are. One, we're constantly hearing about, and you all have heard me say on this show all the time, many times people question, can anything good come out of Paterson? And truth be told, a lot of good comes out of Paterson. And Vaughn is yet another example of that. So I'm going to share this information with you, 30 seconds worth. You have 30 seconds to get on all your social media sites and tell them to tune in now to gobrave.org. Make sure the speakers are on. Hit the listen live button, and they will be able to hear Vaughn's story on here. Also, I will be recording it, so if you do miss it, we'll be able to catch it later on, but I'd rather for you to hear it live, because it's just something about hearing it live. So let folks know to tune in to Go Brave. That's GOBRAVE.org. Hit the listen live button or listen button on the website, and they can catch it from there.
Yeah, salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, Boardwalk Thursday, water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday, let's move Monday, swap us next Sunday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov. A message from USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
All right. Well, that public service announcement tied right into what Vaughn and I were talking about in terms of the athletics, and that is, being active. Believe it or not, Vaughn, we have a lot of kids in 2015 that don't exercise at all. The only thing they exercise are these.
The thumbs. Yeah.
The thumbs is right.
And it's showing. Yeah, it's showing.
So we have whole campaigns to get kids up and active and moving, and not even just us kids, some of us adults as well. Because I know, like I said earlier, the weather's supposed to be so nice today. I'm going to get on my bicycle this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get out there and hit the trail a little bit for the first time this season. But again, I am thrilled, happy, honored that you take the time to come in and talk to us this morning. Because for those in the listening audience, again, it can be done. I serve a little over 500 plus children on a daily basis, and a good majority of them needs the type of stories that we're talking about right now to help them see that regardless of your plight and your circumstances, if you really want it, it still can be done. And sometimes you don't even know if you want it or not, but you have people who are helping you see that you want it. And that's kind of like Vaughn's story here in terms of playing up. So now, I know you had you were doing law. I know you have your business degree. What made you decide to write the book?
Well, over the years, I'd tell parts of the story of my journey in different speeches and conferences and different things like that. And people would tell me, look, you got to tell the whole story because it is an inspirational one. And I decided in 2008 to embark upon this journey to write this book. And I was in business school at the time, and I convinced some of my colleagues in business school to help me to develop a marketing plan for the book as a class project. And so I had some of the brightest minds, working with me on this, and we developed this killer marketing plan. And then they said, okay, Vaughn, you have to write the book now. And so the day after I graduated in 2010, I started writing the book, and I wanted to tell the whole story. And Mr. G, who you referenced earlier, died in 2000. So it really took me some time to really gather my thoughts, because I really wrote it in many respects as a tribute to him, because I wanted, people to know he was just not, an astute businessman, but, he also gave back in certain ways. And so I was one of the ways that he gave back, and, really want to build upon that legacy.
Now, don't mind me, because while I'm working here, I'm working all the equipment. I'm listening to you because I can hear you through the headphones, but I'm working the equipment with the computer, with the CD player, with everything else to make sure everything is operationalizing. But again, because I've had Vaughn actually, whenever I was principal at another school, he actually was my keynote speaker for graduation a couple of times, and I may even wind up asking him to do it again at some point. Because, it is so important for... I do not like the term minority. I don't even use minority, but it is so important for African American students and Hispanic students and our urban children to see someone who looks like them be able to tell their story, and to see that they have JD behind their name, to see that they have NBA behind their name, and at the same time understand that wasn't always there. You need to understand I grew up in the projects. You need to understand I grew up with a single mom. You need to understand I was the first to go to college. You need to understand, because they need to have a model.
Right.
For many people, the words are not enough.
Right.
They have to be able to see it. So when you now stand in front of a 13-year-old, maybe not all of them, but some of them are sitting there saying, I want to be like Mr. McKoy.
Sure. And I think the important thing that I think all of us have to understand, a lot of the models that our kids see are the athletes, the entertainers, people who appear publicly in different places. And that's fine. Because I think when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional athlete, right? So if you played any sport in any game, you would always envision yourself as the guy who made it to the next level. But that's not reality for a lot of our kids. And so we have to teach them that there are options. If you don't make it to the NFL, if you don't make it to the NBA, if you don't make it to Major League Baseball, if you don't become Jay-Z, you don't become Diddy, if you don't become these folks, there are a lot of other things that you can do to support that area. You can become a sound engineer. You can become a record producer. You can become somebody behind the scenes that provides services to, athletes. You become an athletic trainer. You can become a statistician. You can become so many different things. A lawyer who represents athletes, a lawyer who represents the team or the league. And so there's so many other things that you can do in a sport if you like sports. And so our kids just need to be exposed to more options. And so what I'm really striving to do is to put a public face to that option, to say, listen, I was an athlete. I wanted to be a professional athlete. But the fact of the matter is, or was, somebody thought I wasn't good enough to make it to the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. And it's a numbers game. There are 32 NFL teams. There are 55 people on each team. So I ask kids, do the math. 32 times 55,
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You have over 120 schools competing at the Division I level. You got the 1AA level. You have Division II and Division III. And so you have all of these schools feeding into, a system where it's 32 times 55. And so the odds are you're probably not going to make it. And not because you may not be good enough. It could just be a numbers game or being exposed to the right people at the right time. And so what I was trying to do and what I'm trying to do is say, listen, it's not the end of the road for you, because as I talk about in the book, and I just really got over this, one of the biggest professional disappointments that I've experienced and that I had was not making it to the NFL. And I didn't really understand that until a few years ago when I was at the Super Bowl watching the New York Giants play the New England Patriots at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indiana. And Victor Cruz was playing in the Super Bowl at that point in time. And Victor obviously is from Paterson. We went to the same public school, 21. And so I'm watching Victor play, and our good friend, the Assemblyman Benji Wembley, who coached Victor, was there, and I was there. And I'm sitting there, and I just felt like, wow, how come Victor's playing in the Super Bowl and not me? And so I got to admit, before the live audience, that I was a little jealous. I was a little jealous. And,
I understand.
And I had to, and it was at that point in time that I said, wow, Vaughn, you never really got over it. You never really forgave yourself for not making it to the NFL when you're a college graduate, you're a law school graduate, you're a business school graduate, and you're there not playing in the Super Bowl, but at the time I was planning for the next Super Bowl.
Right.
Sitting next to the president of my company and the governor of the state. And so it convinced me and it showed me, and I went back and changed the book a little bit, and the bottom line is there's more than one way to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And so that's so we have to teach our kids that there's more than one way to the Super Bowl in their lives. And that's what this book is all about.
I'm getting ready. What I've been doing with my guests, I started it this year, was when they say something quotable during the interview, I put it on Twitter. So I'm getting ready to put that there's more than one way to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to put your name behind it. There's more than one way. And that is so true. And I'm going to tell you why, particularly for my younger listening audience or your parents that have kids, you need to hear this message, because in many instances, we think the Super Bowl or the NFL or the NBA is the be-all, end-all, when the truth of the matter is it's not, one. But secondly, there is a way to use athletics to your advantage.
Absolutely.
So in many cases, particularly with our colleges, for lack of a better term, they pimp our kids in terms of the athletics, because colleges make like untold amounts of money off of athletics. So if now you can turn that around in your favor to get the scholarships and get your education and all that because you played ball, then by all means use it. And as Vaughn is saying, you can play ball in college, and if you don't make the NBA or the NFL or whatever, you still got an education out of that. And from that education is when you can do all these other things. And he was mentioning some of these support areas. Think about this in terms of being an agent or the attorney for these athletes. You get a cut of what they make.
3%.
That's right. You get a percentage.
$20 million is a lot of money. Absolutely.
And you do that for multiple players, not just one.
Absolutely.
So you really do have to think this thing through in terms of it's not just about playing the ball. And in some instances, even that's not enough, because this week, the verdict came down with Aaron Hernandez of the New England Patriots, and it came down guilty on all charges.
Yeah.
Now, I was telling folks, for me, Vaughn, my mind just cannot wrap itself around having played in front of millions of people, for the most part a kid's game, making millions of dollars,
right,
to now go to an orange jumpsuit for the rest of your life with no parole.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah. But I think it reinforces, I think, for a lot of us that, these athletes are human beings.
Yes.
And sometimes because of our own inclinations, we put them on this pedestal as if they can do no wrong, and they can, they're model citizens. And the fact of the matter is, none of us, is a model citizen. And so we can't, hold them to this very high standard when, on any day, any one of us is susceptible to doing something that we regret for the rest of our lives. And so I think, in the Hernandez case, look, the jury has spoken. It's not for me to pass judgment, on him, but it does reinforce the point that, these athletes are human beings, and they will tell you that they're human beings, and they have frailties just like all of us. And so we just have to be careful, and that's why it's important, people got upset with Charles Barkley, in the 80s, when he said, "I'm not your role model." But I think Charles was saying something, very insightful and profound, in that, your parents or your pastors or your school teachers or the people who, see and speak with you every day, should be your role models. Don't necessarily look at me because, I'll probably never talk to you. I'll probably never see you. So, look at the people who are very close to you.
Absolutely. If you've just joined us, and I hope you've been with us since 6 o'clock this morning, because we're in a Reading Circle doubleheader. My guest in the second hour is Vaughn L. McKoy, and we're talking about his book, Playing Up, as well as his life experiences, because his life is an inspiration, particularly because a lot of people really do not, particularly, it's strange to almost look at the clock go backwards in some areas.
Yeah.
A lot of people really, even with an African-American president, still do not expect African-American males to amount to anything.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have JD, the fact that you have MBA behind your name, says it dispels that myth. I mean, for that matter, the fact that we have an African-American president sitting in the seat dispels that myth, but it's still out there.
Yeah.
Yesterday when Dr. Webb was talking to the kids at the school on the Skype session, he's a doctor, and he says many times he comes through the hospital and they think he's a nurse or the janitor.
Oh, yeah.
Do you get, when you're in these various offices, that folks think you're something beyond, less than what you are, or they get you confused?
I had an experience early in my career where I went to a courthouse in this state that I won't name on the air, but I went to a courthouse in the state, and the court officers there, the sheriff's officers, would not let me in the attorney entrance of the courthouse. And I was a young lawyer at the time, but I was still credentialed as a lawyer. And I was with attorneys who were barred, who vouched for me, that said, yes, he's with us. And they still wouldn't let me in because I didn't have my identification card. And they made me kind of walk around to, the other entrance of the courthouse. Needless to say, I was not happy, and the attorneys who I was with at the time, they were white males, and they were appalled, and said that they would, write to the judiciary. I said, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's just, move on. But, it has changed in many respects for black males in this country, but in many ways, it has not changed. And as we can see what's going on in our country right now with, black males are under attack by, people who have charge over them. And, it does make me nervous because, I am a black male. And, if I put on jeans and a shirt, I wear hoodies.
I tell the kids at the school that all the time. They don't know me as principal. They
Absolutely.
don't know you as
They don't know
JD.
me.
They don't know you as an executive.
You know, so it's like if they pull me over at 2 o'clock in the morning on the highway, they don't know who I am. Yes, officer, no officer. So I think we have to teach our kids as well. You know, we can't put it all on law enforcement. I think there's some training that needs to go
Absolutely.
On there, and we always push for training, but I think we need to train our kids.
Yes.
And I don't think we're doing enough.
I agree.
Particularly in the schools.
I agree.
Where, you know, we have to train our kids how to respond to law enforcement.
Yes.
You know, how to respond to authority, period.
Yes.
So
I agree, because it's like my message to the students I serve and my own personal kids is just don't do anything to cross the path of a police officer.
Yeah.
Now, if you're innocent, that's one thing. If you just happen to be, but it hasn't happened to me, that an officer just don't do anything to put you, because once it gets in their path, it's not in your control any longer.
Right. And you're not going to solve it, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, with nobody there, right? You're not going to solve it there. So get the badge number, you know, be polite, live to fight it another day.
Yes.
You know, because many times, listen, I served as a prosecutor. I work with law enforcement, you know, on a regular basis. And you know, they're scared too. Yes. I mean, they're scared too. And so you have two parties, both who are scared and who are nervous. You know, both parties should try not to do anything, you know, that would stop either one of them from getting home to their loved ones that night or the next day. You know, and you got to live to fight another day. And
that is well put, because people automatically assume because you have the badge and the gun and the uniform that you're not afraid.
Please,
when truth be told,
they're human beings.
Exactly. It's
They're
just like the athletes. They're human beings too. All of us are human. So they're in the same boat. And then if you happen to add to that your stereotypes or preconceived notions and everything, that when I'm accosting this suspect, the likelihood of him doing that is this.
Right.
Now you put that into the mix, it even heightens it.
Yes. And so we just got to teach our kids, you know, male and females, you know, how to respond, you know, to a law enforcement encounter and not be, you know, hostile, even if you didn't do anything, because you're not going to win that battle right then and there.
Right. You're not. I'm going to share some more information with you again, another 22 seconds worth. In that 22 seconds, get on all your social media sites. Tell them to go to gobrave.org, because, again, this is a story you want to hear. We're going to talk a little bit in this next 20 minutes or so about the initiative Vaughn is getting ready to do with the Paterson public school system, I believe. Is Paterson public school?
And the charter school as well.
And the charter school as well.
Yes,
so he's going to be doing some things there with his book. And even before we get into that, I'm perusing his website as we're talking. And different things are coming up on the site that I'm questioning him about. So I'm going to share this information with you. But do let someone know that Vaughn is on the air with me, and they need to catch this interview. Actually, it's going to be a little bit more than 22 seconds. It's going to be about a minute and a half.
Hey there, I'm Eric Dolan.
And I'm Sebastian Escobar.
And along with Pat Gibbons, we present to you the Monday Morning Blend, every single Monday from 6 to 9 a.m.
As we present to you the most original content in radio, as well as making your morning commute a little less terrible.
Join us every Monday morning from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Say, Dave, do you know that One Direction had the #1 stadium tour this year?
No.
Do you know that YouTube won't make the same licensing deal with the indie labels that it does with the majors?
They won't?
Do you know that Vivo only airs videos from Sony and Universal and does not censor any material?
Hey, Steve, how do you know all this stuff?
Because last semester I tuned into Music Biz 101 and more on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. on WPSC Brave New Radio and heard industry guests talk about all of this stuff.
That's that cool show from the Music and Entertainment Industry Management Department on campus that you can call in or tweet questions about the music biz, right?
It's the only one in the country, and it's a Stitcher Radio podcast as well.
Wow, so the show airs live
every Wednesday at 8 p.m.
I bet they have great guests lined up. I'd like to learn more about touring using social media and DIY stuff.
Just coincidentally, the semester show will include tour manager Dave Laurie, social media whiz Sean Rosenberg, and from Clifton, Sean and Rachel from Blue Raven Entertainment.
When's that show on again?
Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. live only on 88.7 WPSC Brave New Radio.
And it's free!
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed you are. You're listening to an extended version or a Reading Circle doubleheader. We do those every now and again. The show has gotten popular enough that I can now do 2 guests on a Saturday, sometimes 3.
Great. That's
and
great.
Because there was a time whenever I was going out seeking guests, and now guests are seeking me.
That's it.
And that's kind of where I was hoping for that turnover to come about. And so on all the social media sites, I'm constantly getting hit on LinkedIn and other sites. So folks say, I would love to be on your show, and I love it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, if you want to be on it, I'm willing to have you on it. If I need to double or triple book, because I have the 3 hours anyway, we do that. So we started our show this morning at 6 o'clock with Pastor Manuel Mukes out of Houston, Texas, and now we're into the second hour of the doubleheader with Vaughn L. McKoy, and we're talking about his book, Playing Up. And I'm looking on your site, and it's so true. Playing Up delves into how successful people think. To change your life, you must change your thinking. Now, I sat here and I'm looking at the pictures and everything, and you mentioned Benji Wimberly, and I sit here and I remember as a kid always watching, I guess, quote unquote, the powerful people, whoever were in the city, whoever was in the government, this, that, and the other. And I always wonder, wow, what would it be like for those folks to be your friends? Yeah. And now that I'm older, I have a bunch of you all who are my friends, you and Benji and Shavonda and Kenyatta, and I mean, TJ, folks that TJ, folks that are, they within the state and around the country are well known and super successful, and I'm just glad to have them as my friend, because I'm looking here and I remember the magazine articles. I still have that copy of Super Lawyers. I still have that copy in one of my sites. I know Vaughn. And that article there and all those. So let's talk about this whole changing of the mind.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's the mindset, right? And I think for a lot of young people, that trigger that goes off in their mind, particularly inner city youth, about what they can't do, and so it's really trying to get them to understand that they can do it. And I say in the book, and I came up with this quote, things don't get better unless you make them better. If belief has power, if you believe you can, then you can. If something is tough to do, then you just have to play up. And so those are little nuggets that I kind of discovered, along my journey, that really kind of helped me to develop a mindset that I can do this, and even though it's tough, I got to play up, and I wound up defining the term "playing up" because people ask, "Well, what does that mean?" And simply, the theme that kind of runs throughout the book is playing up. Basically, is leveraging all your talents, your skills, your gifts, and abilities to do 2 things: to solve a problem or to leverage an opportunity. That's all it is. And so I've discovered at every stage of my life that I had to leverage everything that I had, all my education, all my contacts, all my resources, all my competencies, to either solve a problem or to leverage an opportunity. And so if we can come into every situation with that mindset, and I used to think, and my thinking has shifted, that coming from a place like Paterson, New Jersey, or any other city, you can put L.A., you can put Baltimore, you can put Chicago, you can put you can put all those places, in place of, Paterson. But coming from a place like that was, a disadvantage. But as I've grown older, I've learned how to take that disadvantage and really turn it into a competitive advantage, right? Because the things that I've learned growing up, in a city like Paterson, have really helped me, in my professional and my personal life. You can't survive here in Paterson, right, without a certain level of moxie.
That's right.
A certain level of confidence, a certain level of leadership, a certain level of boldness, because you've seen and experienced a lot. And so some things just don't bother you because you're like, well, I understand that, I've experienced it. And so I've kind of tried to turn those things over and make them beneficial to me. And one example I can give is, we moved around a lot when I was a kid. We moved 5 or 6 different times when I was a kid. And so that forced me, Mark, to learn how to develop relationships quickly, because I never knew how long I was going to be there.
Right.
And I was able to kind of navigate my way through the city because I knew people on different parts of town. Now, you know, growing up, if you're from one side of town, sometimes you can't go to the other side of town.
That's right.
I mean,
up the hill versus down the hill.
Know,
That's the east
Alabama,
versus the
CCP,
that's right.
That's
right.
So you had all these things going on. But because I kind of lived on different parts of town, I could kind of navigate my way through the city with some ease. And so I translate that to the professional world, and I'm able to adapt to situations pretty quickly. And, you know, I like experiencing new things, and so I've had several different jobs, some of which I had no experience, but because, you know, I developed a mindset that I can transition, I can adapt to change, and some people can't. You know, it's very difficult for them to do that. And so building relationships is something that I've learned, you know, from that experience as a kid that follows me today. I mean, I'm all about building relationships. You know, I know people all over. I have contacts and resources, not for myself, but so that I can help other people.
That's right.
And that's the important thing. And so I learned that. I said, wow, you know, that experience as a kid kind of really helped me, you know, now. And so you got to reach back. And I didn't have that perspective until I started writing the book. Right. And I could see the patterns that develop, and I was like, you know what? That's why I am the way I am.
Right, right.
You know, that's why I am the way I am, and I trace it back to, you know, so you can turn, you know, what people may perceive as a disadvantage into a competitive advantage.
Right.
And so that's what the initiative with Paterson Public Schools is all about, and the community charter school, you know, of Paterson. I wanted to do more than just write a book and people say, hey, that's a good book. Right. So how do we really change the mindset? We got to get it into the schools. We got to get teachers to talk about it. We got to get kids to read it, because if you make it optional,
they're not going to do it.
You know, so it's going to be hard. I mean, particularly in inner city, you know, schools, because, you know, I don't know how disciplined kids are. In some school districts, you know, summer reading is important.
Right.
And the teacher expects for you when you come back to know about the summer reading. So, but I didn't want to place those low expectations on our kids.
Right.
So I said, you know what, let's come out with an initiative. And my wife, you know, Marnie, who is an educator, she's been an educator for the past 20 years, you know, was really, you know, part of the brain trust behind, you know, an idea to come out with a curriculum for the book. So we did more than just write a book. We said, you know what, let's put together a curriculum for the book that meets the Common Core state standards nationwide. So whether you believe in the Common Core or not, you know, because it's important for us to show educators that we believe that this book can be used as a tool, you know, to empower students and to teach, you know, character education through literacy. And by giving kids something relatable and relevant to read. I believe a lot of our kids don't like reading.
Correct.
Because, you know, you look, I like the classics, you like the classics, but some of our kids aren't interested in Shakespeare.
No, they're not.
You know, they're not interested in Chaucer. They're not interested in some of these other authors that, you know, we grew up on.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that playing up displaces that, but it's an option.
No, and Vaughn, I'm going to tell you what, half of our battle is connectivity.
Right.
Once the child now relates, I told you about the session we did yesterday with the doctor.
Yeah.
And it's funny you were talking about making things optional or not. What happened with my 8th graders was their behavior had gotten so off that I had taken away all of their 8th grade activities.
Right.
I had taken away the dinner dance,
everything,
taken away everything, the pictures, everything. But what I did was, as a part of their earning back, and had I had your book prior in terms of mass copies,
sure,
I would have done it with that book as well. But I did it with Antonio's book.
Sure.
I said, you, as a part of earning back, you're going to have to read this book.
Right.
And if as a part of the donations to the district, if we wind up with enough copies, I'm going to do the same thing with your book. Because, again, once the kids get into it, Mr. Medley, this book is good.
Absolutely.
Because now he starts talking about experiences, just like you're going to talk about experience that the kids can relate to.
Absolutely.
So in some respect, because I'll be one of the first to tell you our kids don't read, but it's not always that our kids don't read. Our kids are not interested in what we're wanting them to read.
Absolutely. And I think that's the whole purpose behind this initiative, because and just imagine, I think the kids all over the country would benefit from this book, but just imagine if kids read this book in Paterson Public Schools and they see the streets that they live on.
Yes.
They know some of the names in the book.
Yes.
They know some of the places. It establishes a connection, and then as a part of this, I've agreed to come to some of the schools over the next year after kids have read the book, and so now they can see me, they can feel me, they can talk to me, they can touch me, and I think that connection is very, very important. So this curriculum, which follows the Common Core, true, false, multiple choice, short answer, critical thinking. It kind of lays it out, and what we wanted to do was to really create a turnkey resource for teachers, because we know they're busy. And some of them don't want to take the time to create a test. So it has it all created for them. All they have to do is basically photocopy and pick and choose the section that they want to use and the questions that they want to use. And it's scalable. So if you have a class that's at, a lower level, you can kind of pick and choose questions, for appropriate for that class. If you have classes that are at a higher level, you can kind of pick and choose questions, for that class. And so the purpose behind, the donation really is to get kids reading about something that's relatable and relevant, and also to give, the teachers an additional tool to use to connect to the kids, because a lot of times what happens too is teachers who don't come from those urban areas feel that they can't make that connection with the kid because it wasn't their experience. Correct. And through no fault of their own, they're being honest about their own experience. And they say, well, I really can't relate. Well, I'm making it easy for you to relate now. Absolutely. And Dr. Angela Gonzalez, who also worked with us, on this project, she has a PhD and an expert in curriculum development. And she teaches at some community colleges down in the Florida area, and she did her kind of PhD, in kind of urban education and how kids learn and kind of using mentorship also as a model in the development of academic achievement. And so she really also was a huge contributor, to this project, and she's going to be here next week as well. With us to kind of demonstrate, the workbook and how it can be used in the classroom, and not only in the classroom, but in any instructional settings. And so after school programs, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, any mentoring program, Youth Build, any program that's working with young people, can use this. We're trying to really get ourselves involved with the President's Initiative, My Brother's Keeper, to kind of provide content for that. So there's a lot of things going on, with this. And I think, the curriculum really gives us a platform because, I wanted to do something, that was more than write a book. Correct. A lot of people write books. Right. But how do I take it to the next level and really get kids to understand? And not just kids. I also want to get people who are in a position to mentor kids to understand that it is worth getting involved. Yes. Right? And so this book is not just for mentees, it's also for mentors, for them to understand, because many mentors say, you know what, that wasn't my experience, so I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to help you understand the mindset and the psyche of what goes on, in the life of, an inner city kid. And so maybe a mentor and mentee could read the book together. And just kind of pick it apart, because sometimes it's awkward sometimes when you're in a mentor-mentee relationship, because you don't really have the content to kind of break the ice. Right. But get the kid reading and say, hey, you know what? Hey, we're going to read this book together. Every week we meet, we're going to read a chapter. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Vaughn. And so I want people to kind of learn from me and, my challenges, my ups and downs and different things like that. So that's why we're taking it to this next level and really trying to get it, involved in schools and with educators.
Now, if I remember reading the press release, the number of books that you're giving away is a significant number.
Yeah, 5,500 books.
5,500 books. That's
yes.
5,500 books that Vaughn is giving away.
And that's just the book. And so for every 30 books, we'll give away a curriculum. So we're talking about maybe about 200 curricula that we're going to be giving away, so that, if a teacher is teaching, 30 students, they'll have one curricula that they can use to
Now,
teach.
I'm emphasizing this, Vaughn, because my guest in the earlier hour, the title of his book was Givers Are Getters.
Yes.
And if you're giving away 5,500 books, because the book, folks, is for sale. He didn't write the book to give it away, even though he is giving it away. And where I'm going with this is he's going to be extremely blessed.
Yes.
Because he's giving away 5,500 books that has the potential to change lives.
And that's what it's all about. And I was very fortunate, I got, through my travels, I was able to raise the money, to be able to do this at no cost to the district, because I really wanted to give back to the district that had given so much to me. And so I went out to my friends and really encouraged them to support, what I was doing. And I can tell you, I batted 1,000. Nobody refused when I asked them for a contribution that would enable me to make this gift through a nonprofit that we founded some years ago called Manifest Destiny.
Right.
Because we really want to help kids to manifest destiny in their lives.
Absolutely.
And so that's what this initiative is all about. And we hope it spreads. I mean, we're starting in Paterson, but I'd like to take it on the road to cities around the country. And around the world, if necessary, because I really believe that this story is a great humanitarian story.
It is
of triumph and of victory and of being able to kind of bounce back. And we all are dealt a different hand in life,
right?
And so how do you leverage it? How do you play up?
Right.
Is what it's all about.
Now, there's a date associated with this donation.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I was talking to Vaughn as we were coming up the steps when we scheduled it. We purposely scheduled it for today to publicize the actual day, which is the 22nd?
It's April 22nd.
It is, okay.
It's going to be in Paterson, New Jersey, at New Jersey Community Development Corporation, 32 Spruce Street. We're starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think 8:30 is like a little continental breakfast. And, we're doing more than just having a donation, but we're also having a mentorship panel. And I've invited, some real experts in their fields to come and talk about, mentorship as it relates to education, how to start a mentorship program, in your school. Because I do think, the combination of mentorship and education is a powerful one. Even, as I look through my career and in the professional world, I mean, I know a lot of people who are very well educated, but they don't have the mentorship and the relationships to kind of help them break through to the next level.
Right.
So this is not just for young people. And I think the next phase of our project will be, kind of that 18 to 35 young professional crowd who are trying to figure out, how do I break through? How do I build relationships? I'm working on another project right now in development. It's called Rookie. And Rookie is an allegory that basically walks through 12 powerful principles that I've come up with over, the past 10 or 20 years of how to empower a mentee to take control of a mentoring relationship. All the books that I've read, so far talk about it from the mentor's perspective, but what does the mentee have to do in order to leverage the relationship? So that's a project that's under development right now. But the 22nd is going to be a great opportunity. We have the Victor Cruz Foundation is supporting the event. The Department of Education is supporting the event. Dr. Evans from the Paterson Public School District is supporting the event. And then we have, some middle school principals are going to be attending, high school principals, and the head of not the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Essex County will be there. Walter Fields, the CEO of North Star News, will be there. Former state director for the NAACP. Bob Garassi, obviously, who runs NJCDC. So we're going to have a nice panel discussion. We're going to record it, and we're going to package it. And, for those of you who are interested, there'll be a way for you to get it. But we're very excited about it, and I wanted to kick this off in my home city,
And I'm sure your home city is, because again, as I said earlier, the question always comes up, does anything good come out of Paterson? And yes, it does. For those of you in the listening audience, most of the time, as you know, my guest is actually on the telephone, and I don't take telephone calls, but my guest is live in the studio. So if you've been listening to the interview and you said, gee, I'd like to ask Vaughn a question, you can give us a call, because he's live with me here in the studio at 973-720-2738, and you can have the opportunity to chat with Vaughn live here in the studio. Again, I usually don't take telephone calls when I have a guest on the line because it gets a little cumbersome in terms of trying to conference folks in. But when they are live in the studio, they do have that opportunity to talk to you. So if you've been listening and you want to call in, the number is 973-720. I'm saying it slow because I know how radio can be. 2738. 973-720-2738. And you can talk to Vaughn. The other piece of this is, and you said earlier about, the kids having the opportunity to meet the author. When my show, I've gone through 3 time slots, and the one that I'm in now is the longest. But when the show originally started, I was on Friday nights and Saturday nights from midnight to 1 a.m. And then it moved to Friday mornings for a long time from 6 to 7:30. And a lot of times my guests would come into the studio live, and I was teaching at School 6 at the time. Okay. And I would ask them, what are you doing after the interview? And they would say, nothing, I'm going to get breakfast. This, that, and that. I said, do me a favor, come with me to the school and meet my students. Right. Vaughn, when I would come in there with the book, with the picture on the back and the person, the kids lost their minds. So
they felt they met somebody, who's famous.
I can guarantee when you walk in there with your book with you on the cover, and they get to talk and feel in touch with you, they're going to lose their minds. They really are. It's because it's the craziest thing. We think kids don't like books. We think kids don't like to read. But the reaction is just the opposite. Yeah. That when they get a chance to connect with you, they're going to want you to sign it. They're going to want you to take pictures with them. Mom, I met this author today. Mom, this book. So believe me, it will go well as you go into these schools and they see you and that book together.
Yeah, we did a pilot about a year or so ago with Eastside High School, my old high school, and the English class there took about 100 books. And for Black History Month, I came in and spoke with the kids and kind of went through the book, and they were so excited, and I signed all their books. And like you said, I mean, when they feel that connection, they sense that connection, I just think it adds to the experience. And there's a lot, being talked about today with experiential learning and really having hands-on contact, with the kids. And so I think, we definitely have to consider new ways, to reach our kids. And so I'm just trying to provide an alternative. I'm not trying to displace what's going on, but I see what's going on with our young men and our young women, and so I'm just saying, what can I do to kind of give teachers another tool to use in the classroom, that doesn't take away from their obligations to prepare these students for the test, because I didn't want this to be used as an excuse. It doesn't meet this, that, or the other. Right. And we're going to have a teacher there on Wednesday to talk about how she used this in the classroom. Right. And if you're a teacher with some imagination, you can have so much fun with this, because it's really interdisciplinary. I mean, there are research skills you can teach from this. Right. There are facts and figures you can teach from this. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can use, but it requires some creativity. Absolutely. And we're making it very easy for you by kind of giving you the roadmap, and then you can go from there.
And it is so important. When I leave here at 9, I'm heading down to the Hope Center on 60 Temple Street, because we've just started an 8-week mentoring program for our boys from Napier Academy. Wow. And so when I leave here, I'm going directly there. It's about 40 boys that had a select invitation. Yes. I'm working with Sharon Easton, Officer Easton. Yes. I think Raheem Smallwood is our first guest today. Raheem is first up. Matter of fact, one of these Saturdays I'll work you in between. I think it was between now and June 6th. The program is running. Okay. But we're doing exactly what you're talking about. We're trying to make a difference in the lives of these boys. We're starting with our boys, and then we're going to move and progress to doing something for our girls.
We have to.
And so I call it. I named it the Napier Academy Male Bulldogs of Brilliance. Wow. That's what it's going to be, the Napier Academy Male Bulldogs of Brilliance program. So for the next 8 weeks, today's our kickoff at 9 o'clock in the 60 Temple Street down at the Hope Center. So I'm going to drive here, go down the hill, pop in there, and be there till 12 o'clock. It's going to be from 9 to 12 for the next 8 Saturdays or so, with the exception of Memorial Day weekend. But we really are looking to impact lives, because, again, I tell people all the time, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it as well is because I'm a kid grew up in Paterson as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, Vaughn, I've had the opportunity to travel the world. Sure. Matter of fact, last Friday I just came back from London and Paris.
Wow.
And I've been all over the country.
I see your hat.
Right, exactly. That's it. All over the world, all over the country. And I am a firm believer, and I know everybody's situation is a little bit different, but at the same time, if it can happen for you, if it can happen for me, we went through the same Paterson public school system. For me, it was 15, Martin Luther King, East Side, William Paterson, Fairleigh Dickinson, William Paterson again, so forth and so on.
That's right.
It can happen for these kids if they have the proper guidance and if they have the desire.
That's the important part, because I think the desire piece is crucial. And I tell kids all the time, if you show the desire, people will rally around you. I mean, they will. And I believe we live in a country and a society where if a kid, displays the initiative, that people will, eventually make their way into the lives of those kids and kind of help them, But the desire has to be there. That's something that, is the kid's responsibility. And given that some of our kids are growing up really fast, without a lot of guidance, with a lot of issues, so it's going to require a little bit more to kind of reach them, but I believe all, if not most, kids are reachable. I really believe that, and some of them will make mistakes, and we can try to repair them, and then at some point, you have to look at where you invest your resources.
Right.
And so, but I think that desire piece is important, because I think the desire piece got me to the point where I could then make some good decisions about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so I remember, growing up, making some choices, and then I was able to recover from them, and then I got to college. And once I got to college, it was like, okay, I made it through all of that, right? I wasn't totally exempt, because I'll never forget the day after I left for college on a football scholarship, the police came through my neighborhood and raided the block. And I know I would have been out there. I wouldn't have been selling dope, robbing or killing or stealing from nobody, but I know I would have been out there with the crew. And so the timing of it was, very enlightening for me to say, wow, I must really have a purpose here, because I missed that. I just missed it. And, so I had several close calls like that. And I just encourage kids, to make sure that you also think about, who you're hanging out with.
Absolutely. The crowd you hang with makes so much of a difference. Now, we're in the top of the hour. Again, I got to change over. It's up to you, Vaughn, because I know we contracted, or we talked about, or we agreed to an hour, but I'm on till 9. So if you want to hang out till 9, you're free to do that. If not, I know, we said 7 to 8, but I leave that up to the guest at this point, but I just need to flip us over into the 8 o'clock hour. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll play it by ear, whether you want to stay or whether you want to go, because the conversation is good, and it definitely needs to be heard. The book is Playing Up by Vaughn L. McKoy. He is giving away 5,500 books to the school district and to the charter schools here in Paterson, New Jersey, for all the students to have the opportunity to be inspired and encouraged by his story. Because as we were just talking about in terms of design, for me, what has been the trickiest part of the whole thing is to ignite or to spark that desire.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the kids just don't have the desire. They see, they interact, but then there's a whole bunch that they may not say it or show it, but they do.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we can't get discouraged by what we see. Because some of the kids really are taking it in. Mm-hmm. And we won't see it manifested until years later when they come back and say, you know what, Mr. Vaughn, had I not read your book?
Yep.
You know what, Mr. McKoy, if it wasn't for your book, if I hadn't talked to you, because I'm hearing people come. I mean, you would be amazed how many times I hear Al Moody's name come up in so many different venues, and so many different people say, if it wasn't for Al Moody, if I hadn't come across Pete Nelson's path, if I hadn't come across this one's path, if I hadn't been with Skip, if I hadn't, so eventually the same thing, if it's not already happening, is going to happen with you. Had it not been for Playing Up,
right, and. You need to switch over now? Or?
I'm going to switch over now, and then we'll continue on. So hang on, folks. You know what to do. You know what to do.
Brave-a-thon is coming. 15 bands playing live for 15 hours.
Iridium. Grand Mariner.
Discover the bands of tomorrow as they invade your airwaves.
YJY.
Take a stand by supporting New York and New Jersey's local artists.
Hey Anna.
That's Friday, April 17th from 9 a.m. to midnight on the only radio station brave enough to handle this much kick-ass music.
Brave New Radio. WPSC FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Paterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
Well, we are creeping up slowly but surely to that high of 79. The last time I think I read in the last hour, we were at 48 or 49. We are up now at 54.7 degrees. Working our way to a high of 79, low tonight of 43. Plenty of sunshine today, a few passing clouds tonight. And then on tomorrow, Sunday, sunshine and clouds mixed. 62 is a high, 44 degrees is a low, cloudy with occasional rain after midnight. Monday, rain, high around 60. Cloudy Monday night, low of 54. Tuesday, high of 66, low of 44. Partly cloudy during the day, clearing up at night. And then on Wednesday, rounding out the forecast, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds, partly cloudy skies early, followed by mostly cloudy skies and a few showers late on Wednesday night. But the 63 will be the high and 43 will be the low. That's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. We have entered into our third hour of the Reading Circle, and I cannot think of a better way to come back on the air than the way we have this morning. I was off for 2 Saturdays traveling, and we are back, and I cannot think of a better re-entry show than what I have had today in terms of speaking with Pastor Mukes earlier this morning, and then for the last hour and 10 minutes with Vaughn McKoy. I hope that what we're talking about and you're listening to around the world, because Vaughn is streamed around the world on the gobrave.org site,
Great.
That wherever you're listening, that this is encouragement and an inspiration to you, because as we were just saying, really, you know, Vaughn, what this is about when all is said and done is building a legacy.
Sure.
And as I was saying prior to going into the top of the hour, at some point, if it is already happening, some child is going to come to say to you one day, Mr. McKoy, your book changed my life.
Yep. And you know, it's funny because I tell the story in the book about one of my teachers, and I haven't seen her probably since the 4th grade. She retired, I understand, a few years ago from public school number 10. Her name is Juanita Jones. And Ms. Jones was my 4th grade teacher at school 10, and I was with her for 1 year because we moved. But Ms. Jones was the first person, I think, to tell me that, Vaughn, one day you'd make a good lawyer. And she told me that because I talked a lot in class, and she kind of made me sit right in front of her desk because I was a chatterbox. But that seed that Miss Jones planted, you know, kind of stayed with me. I didn't really know any lawyers at the time, and I got to high school. And I wrote in my yearbook, you know, when they ask you what your career goal is, and I said, I want to be a lawyer. I had no idea. It sounded good. It sounded lofty. It would make people think that I was smart and that I was on my way. But I really had no real understanding of how I could do it. I just put it down. But it taught me to you know, think big, aim high. And so I wrote it down in my yearbook, and by the time I was, I guess, a sophomore, junior in college, I really applied to law school as a default. You know, number one, I didn't feel like getting out there hustling, looking for a job at that point in time. You know, I had 4 years of fun in college. You know, I was like, I need to go to school some more, and so. And so I applied to law school, but at the same time I applied to law school was when I met, you know, Mr. G, and kind of the light bulb went on because he was a lawyer, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, you know what, I think you can do this. So with that encouragement, I said, really? And I just, you know, kind of put my mind to it, applied to law school, I got in, and you know, you're talking about building a legacy. When I had a conversation with him one day in his office, he sat across the table from me, and he said, Vaughn, you know, do you know why I'm doing this for you? And I didn't know why. I had nothing to offer this man. He had everything he possibly wanted in life, very successful, buying and selling companies, running a public company. I was like, no, I don't know why you're doing this for me. And he said so that you can turn around and do it for somebody else. And so that kind of, stuck with me, kind of stung me at the time because, it kind of placed this burden on me that I wasn't sure I wanted. I'm struggling myself. I'm struggling myself. I'm not even in law school yet. I'm trying to get out of college. And you're telling me that, I have this obligation to people who come after me. I'm like, that's heavy, But over the years, I've come to embrace that. And I think you were talking about the title of the book of the gentleman you talked to, Givers or Getters. And it reminds me of a quote that I heard from Zig Ziglar. I don't know if he created the quote, but, it goes something like, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want in life. That's right. And so I was like, wow, that when I heard that and I harkened back to what Mr. G said. So it was really all about giving at that point. And trying to, use all I could to, give back in a way that would help me achieve my goals in life. And so that's kind of the mindset that I've adopted and that I'm trying to instill in my family and my kids and people who, work with me in different capacities and, try to help these kids understand and adults understand, listen, let's help other people get what they want, and then we can get what we want. So it's kind of a good relationship.
No, it really is. And again, you've had the opportunity because you were the Attorney General.
I was, Assistant Attorney General and Director of the Division of Criminal Justice.
So now talk about in terms of dealing with the governor and all that kind of, what is that like? I mean, you had the opportunity to sit with the governor and all that good stuff.
That was you talk about, being thrust into fire. I mean, anybody who's worked in Trenton can tell you that, Trenton is a place with sharp elbows. And I learned a lot. I wouldn't trade that experience, for anything. But I got to tell you, there were some days where, I questioned whether I wanted to go to work or not. I mean, just tough internal battles, challenges, with the legislature or challenges with, prosecutors or law enforcement and, layoffs and budgets and, just a whole bunch of stuff that you learn. And at the time, I mean, I was a young man. I mean, I was 33, 34 years old, and I had all of this, authority to make decisions and, kind of supervising people who were old enough to be my mother or my father, so it was a learning experience. But again, I just kind of go back to what I learned on the streets in Paterson and what I learned at Eastside High School, playing up, leveraging all of my talents, my gifts and skills, abilities to do two things: solve a problem or to leverage an opportunity. And so I think if I go into anything with that mindset, that's consistent with my core competencies and my skills and my leadership, then, I believe I can be successful. But that was a great opportunity for me, and I encourage, all young lawyers, if they have a chance at some point, to kind of work in government. And that was my second stint in government. My first was with the U.S. Attorney's Office out of the District of New Jersey, where, I was a trial lawyer. I love kind of trying cases and prosecuting cases, and I saw firsthand, how the federal criminal justice system works, and then I work for the state criminal justice system. So, unique perspective on both sides of the aisle.
Well, I tell you, I applaud you. I laughed when you were talking about Miss Jones said you'd be a lawyer. I have a couple of kids in my school, one young lady who said she wanted to be a doctor. So what I do is once kids identify, I start calling them their title.
Absolutely.
So the young lady, I call her Dr. Stevens because she said she wanted to be a doctor. So from that point on, I've been calling her Dr. Stevens. And then there's other kid who's mouthy, just like you were saying, talkative. And I assigned it to him. I said, you know what, Yazir, you're going. So I started calling him Attorney Simpson.
That's it.
So every time I see him in the hallway, Attorney Simpson, how you doing?
Yep. And that's very important because I think, educators and anybody who has authority over a kid, your words matter. I mean, they matter. And so you may not think they matter, but kids listen, and they internalize it consciously and subconsciously. And so when we're constantly telling them what they can do and how they can do it, and supporting them and encouraging them, I think it does have an impact on their social and psychological and academic development. I mean, I really think it does. And then we just have to make sure that we have the resources, because we don't know what they're getting called at home.
Right.
Right. But since they are with you for most of the time, then at least the waking hours, during the school year, they're with you a lot. Let's start calling them, and encouraging them, and pushing them in a direction of, positive influences and positive role models.
No question. One of the books I'm reading was recommended to me by one of the assistant superintendents, Maria Sanders, called Understanding the Frameworks of Poverty.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it or not, but Vaughn, when I talk about that, she's a psychiatrist, is Ruby Payne. Matter of fact, I want to get in touch with her and see if I can get her to call into the show.
Sure.
But when I say break down the root causes and what kids are going through, I'm doing an exercise Monday at our staff meeting, because she gives a 3-part quiz. And then really what it does is sets up the 3 classes: poverty, middle class, wealth. Mm-hmm. And she has a litany of things to check off to see, do you know how to do this in each class? There are some things in the poverty class that you look at in the list and say, I never gave any thought to that.
Right.
That those who every day, that's their survival mechanism.
That's it.
And then there's things in the middle class that the poverty class would know nothing about. They don't know what an IRA is. They don't know what a 401(b), 401k, all that. Sure. They don't know that lingo. And then there's things in the wealth class that the middle class has no idea about. And so it's a wonderful exercise that I'm going to be doing with the staff Monday afternoon.
That's wonderful.
To again give them that connectivity and appreciation for, because we take a lot of things for granted.
Absolutely.
We take a lot of things that's in our class or lifestyles, as everybody has that. And when it doesn't appear, we get frustrated and start hollering and yelling at the kid. Right. You don't realize, like you just said, you don't know what that kid is being called at home.
That's right.
You don't know things. I had a situation yesterday morning that I almost lost it with the teacher. I didn't say nothing, but in my mind I was singeing. Kid's coming up the stairwell, had little Kool-Aid stains on his shirt, and a couple of, Mr. Medley, is this acceptable in here? Is can I said, well, maybe it is for him. And I'd say, and his mother said she was going to bring him another shirt. Well, if his mother says she's bringing him another shirt, why are you telling me this?
Right.
And so now the other piece I said was, I do have some extra T-shirts in my office if he really does need to change over and his mother doesn't come. But my point in this is, there was so many other ways to handle that without humiliating the kid in the stairwell in front of his peers.
Right. And that's for a kid, you might as well. I mean, that's no one wants to be humiliated in front of their friends. Not at a kid at that level. You know, you pull them to the side. You need help. Let's go. There are different ways to do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And sensitivity is important.
Bingo. And I'm sitting there looking at the kid's face, because now he starts ringing on the shirt. He's doing like this because he's embarrassed now.
Of course.
So at that point, I said, "Oh, I can't wait till Monday." I can't wait till Monday afternoon staff meeting. But I'm not going to do to her what she did to that child. But at the same time, I'm going to help them understand.
Sure.
Do you understand what we're making some of these kids feel like, because we're not relating to them? And I tell them, I'm very clear. I'm not excusing the behavior.
Of course
But
not.
at least I have an appreciation for what might be driving it.
Right.
And you just hit it when you said, somebody at home may not be calling that kid attorney.
That's right.
Somebody at home may not be calling that kid doctor.
Right. Somebody may not be at home. So you just never know. You just never know. And I think that's why, educators are so important in the lives of our kids. And I know, the salaries don't necessarily correspond to the importance that they have in the lives of young people, but teaching still is a very noble profession. And I think, the overwhelming majority of our educators are doing it right, and they're in it for the right reasons.
Right.
You have a few as in any profession. There are a few lawyers out there.
Exactly.
A few doctors, few accountants, engineers.
Exactly.
So there's always a few people in the profession that kind of give it a bad name. But I think teachers are in it for the right reasons, and they really want to help our society grow, and they have to be able to teach regardless of zip code,
right?
Regardless of socioeconomic status. Regardless of native language,
right.
all they got to be able to, relate and teach these kids in those situations.
It is true. I end all of my staff meetings with a PowerPoint slide or a picture that says, "Teachers make all other professions possible."
Yes.
And I don't care what you do, you had a teacher.
You had a teacher.
You had a teacher. So
yeah.
teachers make all other professions. And really, like you said, in terms of the Nobel, I laugh sometimes at some of the things the little kids say. Last week I was on the playground, and one of the second or third graders came up to me and said, "Mr. Medley, thank you for the spring break." And what came to me, I was like, wow, they really do think the principal has all this kind of power. It's like in their minds, I designed spring break. It's like, no, but I didn't even say nothing. I just said, you're welcome.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But you're right. In terms of the power of our authority and words and everything else, they carry a lot.
Yes.
And again, from the standpoint of you being in the positions that you're in and being able to tell your story, it's going to mean a whole lot, and I applaud you for giving the books away. Down to the last couple of minutes, and then I'm going to let you go.
You got it.
In terms of, this is your opportunity to promote. You could say anything other than the price of the books, even though you are giving away on this initiative, but how can folks get a copy of Playing Up?
Well, you can go to Amazon.com, obviously. You can go to my website, which is www.VaughNMcKoy.com. That's VAUGHNMCKOY.com. You can go to BarnesandNoble.com as well, to pick up the book. And if you like what you heard today and you want to stay in contact, you can always email me. My email address is vmckoy, MCKOY, @VaughnMcKoy.com. That's VMCKOY @Vaughn, VAUGHN, McKoy.com. Email me, let me know, what you think, and you can also email me through the website as well. So, love to hear from you, and hope you enjoy the book.
As soon as you wrote it, I downloaded mine on Kindle. And I haven't gotten through
that's
all
right,
of
you
it
can get
yet.
It on Kindle too.
That's right, it's on Kindle.
Kindle.
Soon as I got the email and Marnie told me and Vaughn told me that, because I think you initially were doing the book signing at Eastside.
I did the launch at Eastside.
So as soon as he launched, I went to Amazon and downloaded it on my Kindle. I have it on there. I've begun reading. I haven't gotten through it because I'm always reading like 20 to 25 books at any given time. So I'm getting through pieces of them. And during my trip, I finished up about 4 different books that I was in the midst of. I finished them up while either in the air or at the hotel at night or whatever. But I applaud you. I salute you.
Thank you.
I thank you for what you do. I thank God for what He's placed you here to do.
Yes.
And we just have to keep doing what we're doing because it does matter.
It does matter.
It really does. Like I said, when I leave here in a half hour or so, I'm getting ready to get with these 40 boys or so, and we're going to have some fun with them and teach them and help them out, like I said. But before the 8 weeks are out, I'll probably tap you to come on in and talk to them a little bit. And if we are free on one of the 8 Saturdays that we're doing it. But again, I thank you.
Thank you.
Tell Marnie hello.
I certainly will.
And I'll have a wonderfully blessed day.
You too.
Thank you.